Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Eric.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. I am riding off the high that was this weekend's AKA battle. This was Swiss Beats versus Timbaland. This was Erykah Badu versus Jill Scott. This was Teddy Riley versus Babyface. This was The Dream versus Sean Garrett.
I mean, this was two huge names. Eric.
Yeah.
And Jeff.
Finally.
Finally in the same... People have been asking for so long, how do we get Eric versus Jeff?
They were tired of Eric and Jeff.
Yeah.
Now they want Eric versus Jeff.
They were like, we've seen Eric versus Ludacris.
Yeah. I think this was your idea, so congratulations for...
I guess I was the winner then.
dreaming this up and creating it and putting it out into the universe. And shout out to all the people who joined us. This was for our Patreon users, our Patreon family, our Patreon subscribers.
Yeah.
This was a chance for us to give back, because what Patreon is a method of supporting things you like.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a lot of people who like what we're doing right here.
Which is dope.
Which is really awesome. And
actually,
shout out to all you guys.
Before that, I want to shout out a few of our more recent subscribers, just because...
that's what we do.
That's what we do. We've shouted everybody else out, so now these new people. I want to shout out Olivia Martin. I want to shout out Ahmad Dennis, Emily O'Connor, Darren Jones, James McCrae, and Valerie Carrington.
Those are all people who recently joined.
Yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Shout out to all you guys. We really appreciate that. I'm so happy that they were around to join in this AKA battle.
Yeah, I want to say, so Ahmad Dennis gave a sizable amount.
Yes.
And so when people give a sizable amount, I ask them for their T-shirt size, their address, and their phone number.
Yeah.
And I FaceTime them.
Yeah.
Well, as a surprise.
No longer a surprise.
Yeah, I know, I gave it away. But that being said, I FaceTimed Ahmad. He was on the job. He was wearing his N95 mask.
It's essential work.
I don't know where he was working. It didn't seem like a hospital.
But he was somewhere.
Yeah, he had like a saw in his hand or something.
No, yeah, a saw.
He had some sort of tool in his hand.
He was doing essential work.
He was cutting something open.
And
hopefully it wasn't a body.
You surprised him.
I surprised him. He was like, "This is great. I'm working. Talk to you later."
I do want to say this. People have been so generous, whether it's $2 a month, $3 a month, all the way up to a lot of money.
$500,000
a month.
Yep.
And that money is going right back into all the good work that you guys expect from us, that we want to put out there, and that we envision moving forward.
Yes.
We have recently adapted our tiers over at patreon.com.
Edited is the word.
Edited them.
So I mean, we had these ideas of what our Patreon could be, but in a pre-COVID world, they made sense.
Yeah.
Now they didn't.
Right.
We're not going to invite people over to our apartment.
Nope.
We're not going to be sending out things as much as we wanted to. There were some things that needed to be redone. But
right.
That being said,
yes.
Now it's perfect.
We're back. We're back. Patreon.com/itsthereal.
But while we're here, we should give people like a little taste of what some of the AKAs that we shouted out during our AKA battle.
Okay, it was 30 of
rounds.
Our best AKAs. Stuff that we have cataloged through the years. For the last 10 years, we have something like 400 or 500 of these things each. We narrowed it down to our top 30. We even gave people some that we weren't going to use. I expected some from you. You expected some from me. There was strategy involved.
There was no strategy involved, at least for me. I read them basically top to bottom.
I definitely had strategy.
And that's why you won.
But you wanted to... in some people's eyes, I won.
Okay, you don't have to make me feel better.
No, but I do want to say this real quick. We took a walk afterwards. We were like, that was great. We walked out of here feeling really good. And you said to me, you were like, yo, that was the best possible outcome. Like that it was so even that it was hard to tell who won, or it wasn't a blowout. Because if it was a blowout, that would be really bad.
If it was 29-1, that would have been a real bummer.
Yeah, honestly. And this shows, we both come at this with our own voice and our own creativity and our own sense of humor.
Yeah.
And you see that in each thing. I think it was a joy for people to relive these, hear the stories behind them, and vote and be a part of this. So again, shout out to everybody who was there.
I think I could fucking take you next time.
We'll have to see. Maybe we'll do it on Instagram.
Yeah.
A real versus. But you wanted to go over some of these, just some of our favorites.
29-1. That's what it's going to be next time.
I got a kick out of going through these and finding ones that I was like, oh yeah, that was really great. I find that a whole bunch of mine, for whatever reason, are like math or like science. I had one where it was, yo, what up, it's Eric, aka 25,000 miles, aka if I ruled the world. I've had ones that were like, yo, what up, it's Eric, aka, let me see if I can find this here, because there's so many to remember. Yo, what up, it's Eric, aka busting slugs, aka sodium chloride.
Really good.
Yeah. And then you have ones, this is the one that I finished off with. I had two closing rounds. I was like, this one's gonna like just like destroy. I was like, yo, what up, it's Eric, aka Paul Revere, aka Soulja Boy, tell 'em.
So good.
That was one where it was like, you want to make it performative too.
Yeah.
So you slow it down. It's like being in a
it was like
a rap battle.
Yeah, rap battle.
And then so I had that one, and then my last one that I pulled out, I was like, this is for all the true Game of Thrones fans and fanatics out there. Yo, what up, it's Eric, aka the Night King, aka Iced Out the Watch. And that was another performative one. And I walked off after that, and that felt like really good. Anyway, those are some of my favorites. I just, Lumberjack Championship, aka Rolling Trees, Fondue, aka Dipset, Trap or Die, aka the Oregon Trail, Whippin' Foreigns, aka Indiana Jones, First of the Month, aka Last Time That I Checked. So a lot of that. How about you?
I have Yo, what up, it's Jeff, a.k.a. Still Getting Cake, a.k.a. Dylon.
Fan favorite.
Yo, what up, it's Jeff, a.k.a. Riding on 16s, a.k.a. R. Kelly. Yo, what up, it's Jeff, a.k.a. Gimme Little Head, a.k.a. Zika Virus.
Yeah.
Yo, what up, it's Jeff, a.k.a. Sammy Davis Jr., a.k.a. Son of Sam.
I'd forgotten about that one. Really, really funny one.
Yo, what up, it's Jeff, a.k.a. Uchi Wally Zerbiak, a.k.a. Player of the Year.
Yep.
Heard that a bunch.
Yeah.
Yo, what up, it's Jeff, a.k.a. Titty Boy, a.k.a. T-Shirt in the Pool.
Great one. I think it was cool, too, that we had cataloged all these things that morning.
Yeah.
And then you took screenshots of the document.
Yeah.
And gave them to the internet. It was just like, yo, here's this.
Here's this.
And people were like,
enjoy. Yo, what up, it's Jeff, a.k.a. Fuck the Frail Shit, a.k.a. Anna Nicole Smith.
And that's one that people were like, yo, if you finish with that,
yeah, and I did.
You could walk off this stage. But it was a tough competition. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yo, what up, it's Jeff, a.k.a. Motherfucker, a.k.a. Vice President Mike Pence.
Right.
Yo, what up, it's Jeff, a.k.a. Getting Deep in That Hole, a.k.a. Searching for Baby Jessica. Yeah, there were a bunch. There were a bunch, absolutely. Ones we didn't get to use. Again, we have like 400, 500, so many of these things, and we're going to bring them back. Do like an Instagram versus version of this. Again, for all of our Patreon users, there will be specific things for you that we will not duplicate, that won't be like for mass consumption, just for our friends, our family, our true supporters, our contributors, our friends over at patreon.com/itsthereal. Jeff, on the podcast today. On the podcast today is Fadia Kader.
Okay, so Fadia Kader, people know her from Instagram. She is basically the artist whisperer. She is the one who is in contact. You hear her voice in the background of the Teddy Riley and Babyface verses. You know her history working at Def Jam and Complex and the parties that she started down in Atlanta. She's a wonderful human being, an amazing chef. And we talked to her about community. We talked to her about, obviously, Instagram's success and the need for that community these days. And we talked to her about like really getting her start in Atlanta and moving her way up to New York. It's a really, really fun conversation.
Yes. Also Paul Wall.
Yo, I don't know how many guests we've had so far during this run.
100 something.
It's been like 130, 40 something, I think.
Whatever.
But this might be the most excited that I think either one of us was, because it's Paul Wall.
By the way, so nice.
Nicest guy. So is his team. Shout out to Jeremy Corellis for putting the play in motion.
Yep.
But shout out to Goo. Shout out to Paul. Man, this is one of those where it's like 20 minutes was not enough.
Yeah. We have to do a full episode.
And we can also call him back regularly.
Yeah, like, whatever. There's no rules.
He has a new project coming up with Lil Kiki. He's doing a lot of stuff. And man, his energy is just tremendous.
Finally, we had Ben Detrick on the podcast. Now, I want to say, Ben Detrick, I have invited on the podcast more times than he's been on. This is his first time.
Yeah.
But he's sort of like the Matt Damon
to your
Jimmy Kimmel, because it's been like 3 or 4 times where I've been like, oh, and then rescinded the invite. And I apologize to Ben.
But you don't do it in a mean way. You're
no,
not
but
like...
and I don't want Ben to think that it's like about him, and I don't want Ben to think that it happens to anybody else. It is just our thing.
You want to make him feel special.
Where it's like it's just happened. Like Jim Jones came around
and it
the
was
same
like,
day.
Ben, we gotta bump you. Yeah.
It was at the exact same time. He could only do it during Ben's time. I'm so sorry, Ben, but I'm glad that we were able to make this conversation happen. We talked to Ben about basketball. We talked to him about T.I. We talked to him about
French Montana.
Okay,
so it's a lot of stuff. It's really fun. Again, Ben will be back.
Or he won't.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's even going to accept the invitation next time, but it was very nice that he accepted it this time.
This is a really fun episode. Jeff, right now we're going to call out to Los Angeles and talk to our friend, Fadia Kader. Fadia!
What up?
How are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
We're good.
Fadia, we have to get to the most important news of the day, and there's a lot to talk about, but you got your hair cut by your wonderful husband, Mario. Can you please tell us about the thought that went into this, whether you were scared, and how it ultimately turned out?
I stepped out the shower and I was like, I am so tired of trying to do something with this hair. So
let me make Mario do it. Yeah.
And I was like, Mario, I really need help cutting my hair right now. And, I guess it's based on trust and love. A lot of freaking trust.
When you guys exchanged vows, did you ever think that this was going to end up with Mario cutting your own hair?
Never. Ever. No. I think, honestly, I don't think he would even ever let me touch his hair.
Oh, really?
And cut it. No.
So this is all one-sided.
Yeah, it's not what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine.
There it is.
And how did he do?
He did great.
Oh, well, there we go.
Wait, is he in the room?
Yeah.
He is in the room.
Right, so, yeah.
Yeah, blink twice.
Blink twice, Mario. You feel like you're in danger.
What you have to realize is that I'm an artist.
Yeah.
When she asked me to cut her hair, I just looked at her like second grade arts and crafts. All right, pull out the scissors. Here we go.
I mean, we low-key did use the arts and crafts scissor, though.
I love this. Wait, how much instruction did you have to give Mario before he actually put scissors to hair?
Yeah, did you show a picture of like Jennifer Aniston?
No, can you imagine? One time I tried to cut my hair like hers, not realizing or not thinking because I was so young.
Oh no!
That my texture of my hair is not Jennifer Aniston's hair.
Fadia, you tried to cut your own hair?
No. I went to the lady at the salon, and she's a hustler, so she's like, "Okay, I'll cut your hair like Jennifer Aniston."
Oh my god!
Knowing full well I have a head full of curly hair, like I will never have straight hair.
Oh my god!
But no, it's. I just put it in a little ponytail, and I was like, snip, snip. And then when we took it out of the ponytail, one side was longer than the other.
Oh
so I was
God.
like, what would my hairstylist do right now? And I remembered she always brushes it to the front and tries to like cut it even. So that's what we ended up doing at the end.
One of the things that we love about you, Fadia, is your sense of community, and that translates into obviously your work, but I think at home you've cultivated this regular thing where you would have people over, you would cook for what seems like hundreds of people, hundreds of guests who would come over to play cards and do the Hot Ones challenge and just hang out for an evening. How much do you miss that right now?
Honestly, I miss it so much. We just bought a house, and I was so looking forward to like hosting all the homies. Like it's an open space. We have a massive backyard, and I was just waiting. And then, we bought the house about 3 weeks before we all had to shelter in place and quarantine. So it's been a little bit disappointing because all I want to do is, again, like I'm Middle Eastern, I'm very Arab. When I cook for like a family of 50. Yeah. I don't know how to just cook for 2, and that's honestly a big reason why we always have people over, because I love to cook, but I cook a lot. So it's like, why not just feed the homies a home cooked meal? So it's been hard, but it's also been such a blessing because, you know, how often in this lifetime do we get an opportunity to just like pause and get put on timeout by Mother Earth or whatever higher being and recalibrate, you know? And I feel for a lot of friends like in our industry and creatives that have been either furloughed or let go or due to circumstance. So I'm working that much harder to make sure that if I can't build community at home, I'm trying to build community that much more on Instagram.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I was going to start, when you said pause, I immediately started thinking about your dog, which is named Cat, and your cat that's named
Mouse.
And, yeah. And but I don't want to go too far down that path. I'd rather talk about how on Instagram you became, like, we always knew that you were like the go-to person.
Yes.
For us. But it turns out you're also the go-to person for like troubleshooting like sound issues.
This is like, I feel like, and correct us if I'm wrong, this is like when our mom calls us for answers on Instagram, except you have Babyface and Teddy Riley calling you for help.
I'm assuming you guys heard my voice.
We did.
Yo, by the way, so I recognized it at that moment, and then I was like, wait, was that Fadia?
This is like, the two people whose voices we recognized were Dr. Dre calling and Fadia calling.
You know what's so funny is that, fun fact, Babyface is like my number one favorite artist of all time. And, I was troubleshooting in real time, so I didn't get to enjoy it like everyone else did. Like, what is the irony? Like, this is a moment I've been looking forward to forever.
Oh my God.
And I spent it troubleshooting a lot of things, But what's hilarious is when I went on Twitter later on, I legit saw, like, when I guess everyone heard my voice in the back end talking to Teddy. Like, you know how when there's an earthquake in LA, everyone goes to Twitter and is like, is that an earthquake?
Yes, yeah.
Same thing. Is that Fadia? Is that Fadia? That's Fadia's voice. Oh, Fadia's coming to get you, Teddy.
Oh.
It was pretty hilarious.
That's because Fadia has the same kind of impact as an earthquake in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Well, wow, guys, I'm like, can you come manage me?
Yeah, like that should be your poll quote.
That's right.
Or like one of these people.
I think that it's been such a special gathering on a regular basis. These versus battles. There was no way to plan that type of success to begin with.
Well, how did you get involved in all of that?
Yeah, so I mean, like you guys said, I'm kind of but what we do on the music side at Instagram, we're a mighty and small team of 3. I would say, like, out of the 3 of us, I'm probably the most external facing just because, like, I have a lot of relationships in the industry. So we've always lent ourselves for best practices and educational purposes, So it's just like more than ever now, everyone is just calling because everyone is at home and trying to figure out what to do. And the easiest way to connect with an audience is where? On Instagram. Mm-hmm. Like every artist, every public figure, us, like the way I connect with my family and friends is on Instagram, you know?
Yeah.
So it's only natural that everyone is like flocking right now to the one place where they can all connect the dots and, feel like a sense of community, be it you're at home alone in a studio in New York, or, you're stuck with family, or you took a vacation somewhere and now you're really stuck somewhere. Like the sense of community that Instagram is providing for everyone is key. So it's just like natural, like, it just became a thing like, oh, I'm an artist. I want to go live. I saw, John Legend do it.
Yeah.
Let me go and like call Fadia or call Perry or call Marcus and find out how to do this the proper way. And in regards to like verses, I've been a fan of Swiss forever and I've worked with him in the past. Like he's been by the office and I provided that educational moment with best practices. And, I was a fan of the battles he did 3 years ago, if you guys remember. But obviously we didn't have a live with feature. And he's always been great. And I think Swiss is like such a brand marketing like genius. Mm-hmm. And, the first night that him and Tim went live, like you saw the struggle. It was real. Like, they're like, how do I do this? Oh, so I'm in the background emailing with their respective manager, Gary, who's Timbaland's manager, and our old friend Daniel Glogler, who put us all on an email. And I'm like, hey, do this and do that. But that's what I do day in, day out. I give best practices. And you see the magic, you know, like same thing with D Nice. Like, it's a matter of trend forecasting and recognizing that something is bubbling there and making sure, like, we will never take credit for what these creatives are doing. Like, Versus is Tim and Swiss Beats, you know, D Nice is D Nice, you know, but at the end of the day, we provided them a platform to create that magical moment. Yeah. And that's what we do is like, let me teach you how to fish and you do your thing. And that's exactly what they do. Like, they come up with the creative ideas. And there's times where, you know, I'm a creative strategist, like day in and day out, first and foremost. So, like, there's certain conversations that I'm a part of, but it's not my place. Like, it's not an Instagram thing. It's that artist. It's their moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the love that has been around all of this is because of its organic nature. You know, when D Nice was spinning and we saw Klep on Twitter saying, yo, this feels like everyone from 825 Worldwide Plaza is in here. The
former Def Jam building.
Yeah, is in here at once. We jumped over there, and it was like, you know, saying hi to Young Sav and Steve-O and Latrice and Emmanuel and Shari and all these different people who we were friends with. And that, in the early days of quarantine, felt like a really great human connection right there. And then to see it gain, you know, momentum and climb, you know, to 100,000 at one time and see that, you know, every political candidate was in there, that felt really good because it felt organic to begin with. The same with the versus battles. And I think more and more it's like the platform is there and the ones that really win are the ones who start in this true and authentic way.
100%. And, you know, you have to also think, like, at the beginning of the quarantine, like, it was a lot of uncertainty. You know, it was a lot of fear. Like, it was a lot of emotion that was, like, taking over people, and grief and loneliness. Like, right now we've all kind of, like, a little bit adjusted, I think. Mm-hmm. But in that moment, that was one of the few moments. I mean, even for me, that was a really hard week. And I remember being in D Nice's, like, you know, set before that big Saturday set, right?
Yeah.
And I just, you know, I was in there, like you said, like, talking to my homeboy Tyrone, and I'm like, yo, pass me the drink. Can I come in? Latrice, can I jump in your section? Even though you guys know, I don't go out. Right. I haven't been to the club. I was a club promoter for years. But it was fun to role play, sorry. And, you know, I feel like we were just having fun in that moment. And it actually made me want to go to the club when all this is done.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's all about, is just creating a safe space to, like, make everyone feel like we're all in this together. Like, you can't stun on me. I can't stun on you right now. It's all good. We're all in club quarantine, just, like, having a good time or watching these battles with our favorite artists who are legends.
For sure.
And they deserve their flowers in real time.
Fadia, you were talking about trend forecasting. Did you at all predict where things would be going in terms of, like, demon time, in terms of, like, all these other things that popped up on Instagram?
You know, it's only natural. I think, like, the cool thing about, you know, I mean, there's nothing cool about a pandemic, let's be clear. But the cool thing about challenging times is that it's a moment to, again, recalibrate. And it's a moment to be creative and to have a renaissance. You know, like the last time we had a major situation happen in the U.S. was a recession. Mm-hmm. And what came out of it? You know, you had, like, platforms like Twitter come out of it, Uber, you know, like Pinterest. Like, it was a tech social boom that came out of it, out of a need and necessity. Sorry. So I think, like, you know, could I have predicted it? You know, yeah. Of course. Like, people are stuck at home. They're going to get creative. And quite frankly, like, you know, shout out to, like, everyone that's having fun and getting creative, but do it where you are safe. you know? And keep in mind, like, you know, like we're all going to go out in the real world after all this is done. So be mindful of what you're doing now.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. I'm gonna hire all of them.
Oh, perfect.
Fadia, talk about need and necessity. Can we take it back to when you were living down in Atlanta and you felt a dearth of parties and functions for a certain type of young kid, or not young kid, young adult out there, and you created parties that didn't exist. Can you talk about how you made your mark in Atlanta probably a decade ago?
Yeah, definitely. So I started off, not a lot of people know this, but I started off actually in the fashion industry as a stylist. I knew I liked music, but I didn't really have like an understanding of career paths in music. So I just was like, okay, I'm a stylist. I went to school for fashion merchandising and visualizing. And why can I work with artists as their stylist? So I started working with assisting different stylists that would work with Rihanna and Nas and J-Lo and a whole bunch of folks. And then I met up with Bow Wow's mom, who had a boutique in Atlanta at the time. And I started working for her, but then met Big Boy's wife and her best friend, Shirlita and Tracy. And they had their boutique, and they really just didn't have a marketing background like I did, even as a young kid. So I just jumped in and started working in their boutique as their creative director. But at the time, I got introduced to some folks who are artists in Atlanta that were pretty underground. But they were kids like me and young adults like me who could go to Strokers on a Monday, or on a Sunday, which is a strip club. Go to Magic City on a Monday, but then be at MJQ on a Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. So, or be at an art gallery or a charity function later on in the week. And there wasn't really a scene for kids that were dabblers like me. Other creatives, predominantly Black and brown creatives, mm-hmm. that could have a safe space to network and build community and have fun, So somehow I got convinced to meet these artists, and I started managing them because, hey, why not? I've never been a manager, and who doesn't, I obviously I'm sadistic like that. And I was like, challenge, yes, put me in, coach. But, in managing a new act in Atlanta that didn't necessarily have a lane at the time, I was like, you know what? Oh, you won't book my artist to perform at Smith Soul Bar? Cool. I'm going to book my own showcase. Mm-hmm. And the first showcase I ever did was with Janelle Monáe, Jaspex, my group called Proton, Grip Pliers back in the day. I mean, shout out to all of them. Yeah. B.O.B. was there. And it just kind of it ignited this passion of bringing my fashion sense of detail, trend forecasting from my fashion experience, to music, right? Yeah. And I was like, okay, let me trend forecast who I think has next in the music space, and let me book them ahead of time in a secondary market like Atlanta, and get them first. And I had the success with with my old partners and shameless plug, BAME, Jabari and Gerald. The first show we ever did with Shameless Plug was Drake's first sold out show that got him booked, all over the country.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that was a big show. And actually, a lot of people don't know, we did that show May 2nd, 2009. I was supposed to book him in December, and then in February again of that year, and then, 2008. But he kept telling us oh, I'm dropping this thing with Lil Wayne's label, let's wait. And I'm glad that we waited, because it created such a moment for him in that time. And even down to J. Cole and Dom Kennedy and so many artists that we were trend forecasting, I just got off on the fact of oh, I know about this new artist. And a lot of times I got put on because I had a partner in crime in John Gotti from the Smoking Section.
Yeah. Shout out to John.
So shout out to John, because we, with Gotti, I started, identifying the fact that I'm not getting press pickup because I'm in Atlanta and I'm not politicking with the homies up in New York. with the journalists and whatnot, but he took a chance on me being in Tennessee, and he became like our media outlet, like honorary media outlet for what we were doing in Atlanta, and helped curate a lot of those A3C stages and whatnot.
Super dope. And I think another big point, and I saw you speak about this recently, was when you knew that it was the right time to move on from Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, it's one thing to build something, but another thing to know that, like, you've done what you can do and you move on to something different.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was really hard because when I started, Broken Bougie is the name of the party. I felt like such a sense of like dedication and loyalty to my city and the community that I built, because before that, like, we didn't have a place to go and build that kind of community. So I felt like, I had the weight of the world to make sure I committed to seeing it through. But at the same time, like, I wasn't getting what I needed. Like, I was putting in, when you start something new, you typically either have investors and capital, to do it, or, like, you just hustle your way to get what you need to get it done. I didn't have that. I didn't have investors. I didn't have capital, and I damn sure wasn't about to hustle on a corner to get anything, So like any money coming in was getting put right back into the scene and into building this like community in Atlanta. And I think because it was so poppin', like, people had this misconception, like, oh, well, Fadia's good, like, she doesn't need anything. But all the while, like, here I am about to get evicted, like I was doing things, but I was putting it and dumping it back either into the artists that I was managing or the shows that I was producing or the parties. So at one point I just had to be like, okay, Fadia, what about you? Mm-hmm. Where do you come in this scenario? Like, everyone else is eating, what are you scared of? Like, it's not a failure. And I had this misconception that if I walked away, it meant that I failed at what I did. But when I finally realized that in that moment, you can create a blueprint, but you might not be the person that eats off of that blueprint. Mm-hmm. It's okay, because that's what visionaries do, and trendsetters, that's what we do. Like, you create something and you set it off into the world, and other people can, like, replicate the magic as much as they can, but you go and recreate or do something all new all over again.
Absolutely.
And that was, that was really key for me in that moment. Like, I was like, it's okay. Like, you did what you could for the city, but you have to do for you now. And you can do more for the city of Atlanta being in New York.
And, this is all part of a book, and that is just one chapter of it. I think that there's a lot of people now who are like, well, but I had this whole thing beforehand, and this global pandemic has, really thrown everything up into the air. But people can regroup. And it may take time. It may take no time. It could be somewhere in between. But people can pivot, and people can adapt, and people can invent new ways to get themselves moving in a new direction, and that's fine. And that's part of your bigger story. Fadia, we were scheduled to be in Los Angeles for a month. We were going to be there all through May. We were so looking forward to stopping by your guys' place, and I think it's something to look forward to when all this gets settled, once there's a vaccine and people travel again. We can't wait to stop by and see you and Mario. Hopefully we can
hang out with Kat.
Yeah, all of that. And in the meantime, thank you so much for what you're doing for the broader culture. I think it's so important for all of us to feel a part of something, and you have facilitated that. You have played such an essential role in that, and we thank you, and we love you, and we appreciate you, and we'll be calling to check in.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for your patience with me and everything. I mean, you guys are like legends, and thank you for keeping us laughing and entertained and educated and introducing us to like some of our favorite culture creators and execs and future legends and current legends in the game.
Thank you, Fadia.
Thank you, guys.
And now, Jeff, we're going to call down to Houston, Texas, and get on the phone with the one and only Paul Wall, baby. Paul Wall!
What up?
What it do, baby?
What's happening? How are you?
I'm great. How y'all doing?
We're doing all right. First and foremost, how are your family and you and everybody getting through these uncertain days and weeks and months?
Man, I was always taught, my mama always taught me don't complain no matter what's going on. Find the good in the situation and survive, make it through every situation. I don't know if it's just because of, certain aspects of my childhood I had to deal with. That's just the mentality, we had. But, with all this going on, man, it's really hard for me to focus on the bad just because I see so much negativity going around. With so many people dying, so many people losing their lives, and losing their life, not just dying, but the life as they knew it, and all
while they're still here,
right. So being it, I don't have it. Nobody in my family has it.
That's a blessing.
It's a huge blessing. Now, true enough, I'm missing out on a lot of money, and my life has changed too. My kids' lives have changed. My son he turned 14 while we was on quarantine. So I had a birthday during quarantine too. Although I don't celebrate my birthdays as much, but still the whole thing, man. It's like, man, you gotta count your blessings, man. Just be grateful.
Absolutely.
What we do have.
Absolutely. So let's talk about a little bit of silver lining here, which is that you partnered up with the Houston Astros and Mattress Mac. I know you're raising money for the Houston Food Bank. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. Shout out to my boy Alex Bregman from the Houston Astros. He came with the idea. He said, "Hey, man, let's raise some money. Let's raise some money for the food bank. Every dollar provides 3 meals. And if you text FEEDHOU FEEDHOU to 41444." Now, it'll send a link to your phone, and you can donate as little as $5. And $5, that's 15 meals right there. So, every dollar really do count, man. So, big shout out to the Houston Food Bank. All the food banks out there, man, they do good year round, man. Thank you. Thank you for what you do. That's
super, super dope. We want to take it back to one of our favorite eras, that 2004, 2005 Houston sound, that culture that really shifted everything in hip hop. We're from New York. It meant a lot to hear you on like What You've Been Sipping On with Jim Jones and Puffy. It's such a regional thing down there in Houston. Obviously, shout out to UGK for setting it off. But for all you guys to go national back then when MTV was visiting with like My Block and all that, how did it feel to be on a bigger, more countrywide level?
It felt amazing. It was unbelievable to me. It was something that I didn't, was possible. Not only that I could make it, but that people I knew and grew up with could be a success. So it was completely unbelievable. A dream come true, prayers answered, and that's still the mentality. That's still how I feel to this day. It just, man, I'm just grateful for God blessing me, man, because this is what I prayed for, work hard for, still to this day. So, to be able to do it on a major scale like that, and especially with people that I know and love, admire, grew up with, friends, to be able to do it like that, it's like, it's almost like Ja Morant and Zion going to the NBA together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The only difference is we got to play on the same team.
Yeah.
At least for the most part, you know what I'm saying? But,
yeah. Well, was it a bigger deal to get Still Tippin' or to get Grills? Like what felt huge to you?
It's difficult to say. I think Still Tippin' brought that unity, and because it had me, Slim Thug, and Mike Jones on it, and it was such a huge song, and it just launched all three of our careers on a national or international scale. So Still Tippin' for sure was huge, but at the same time, Grills, being that I sell grills as well, and I'm known for wearing grills and just known for grills, I think the grills really took it to just the next stage. Also, that grills was doing it with Nelly, Jermaine Dupri. Those some hard hitters right there. So, you know what I'm saying? They definitely took it to a huge level for my career. It was like a promotion. It was like a commercial for our grill shop.
No question.
Not only Nelly put me on the song, it just completely, now I already was known, but it just completely co-signed me on another scale just in the world, not just in the rap world, but in the world.
Yeah.
So, I gotta say the grills, it really elevated me a little bit more.
Well, what'd you think when you heard, Sycamore mixtapes with TV Johnny as one of the guys doing the co-hosting?
Oh yeah, I love that, man. I love that. We used to always get Johnny to do drops. Just anyway, so we'd be on the road or somewhere, and Johnny would be with me. It's my boy.
Yeah.
He would kind of be like my sidekick, kind of. But it's my business partner anyway, and we're making grills, so it's just a tag team, of me meeting people, knowing people, and then introducing them to Johnny. Johnny, he'll take care of them. Let's get that grill, and then from there, Johnny handling all the jewelry aspects. So, and Johnny got a great personality. So
oh yeah.
We love Johnny. So, we'd always get him and he got a real thick Vietnamese accent.
Yeah.
But he's Houston to the core as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, we get him to do drops, and it's kind of, man, he's crazy, man. 'Cause he'll always say some stuff, and he's funny. He got a great personality, and you can hear that through his drops. And that boy, hey, shout out to my boy TV Johnny.
Well, actually, how did you meet Johnny?
I met Johnny being that I wanted to buy grills, and the cheapest way I could get a grill at the time, being that I was 17, was to go work for the person that sold them. And the guy that sold them came down from New York, my boy Crime. He came down and was selling them just out of different stores, kind of selling them out the trunk, hustling them on the streets. And I worked for him doing street promotions. And then eventually he took me and introduced me to Johnny. He was like, hey, I'm gonna change your life. I'm gonna introduce you to the man. And he hooked me up with Johnny, who was actually making the grills. We were just kind of wholesale salesmen. But Johnny was actually making them, casting the gold, setting the diamonds, buff and polish, clean, all that kind of stuff. So teaming up with Johnny, it was the way I could get my grills the cheapest. And I saw a real deficit in the market, just because most of the people that sold grills at the time, they didn't really care about the customer. They were just trying to make a dollar.
Right. Yeah.
So I came in with a different approach. I came in with a customer appreciation approach, taking care of the customer, giving them a good business, making sure they're happy, even if there's an error or something wrong, even if it's an accident or if it's not even my fault, still making sure the customer's right, making sure the customer's happy so that they'll come back, they'll get a new grill next time, they'll eventually bring their kids in, they'll get their, they're gonna come get their mama and they wife and their daughter, Mother's Day presents, birthday presents, Valentine's presents over at the jewelry shop. So, it's just a building a good rapport with the customer, and it worked.
It paid off, yeah.
Yeah, it worked.
Yo, Paul, here's probably the most important question. Everyone's masked up these days with the virus out there. Are you still wearing your grills underneath the mask?
Yes, sir.
Hey.
We've been trying to find some clear masks so I could,
Oh, that'd be hard.
we found some, but they're not exactly the safest of masks. So we okay. So I've been just doubling up on masks, man. I got we got some printed masks that got our grills printed on the outside of them too.
That's dope.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to make sure that they're not the clear Nikes that's you can see the toes through them, and you're just
Yo, Paul, when you think about your entire career, is there a piece of merchandise or some kind of promo item that sticks out to you? Because for us, our friend Ashley Kamenowitz, who works at Atlantic Records, to this day has one of your bobbleheads in her office, and that is the greatest thing ever. Do you have a piece of merch or a promo item that really sticks out to you?
Yeah, I for sure probably say the bobblehead, just because to this day there's a lot of people who still got them in their office. And I got a few left. I just found in my storage, I seen a box or two of them. So I got probably 10 or 15 of them left. And I just be damn, I don't never want to sell them because I'm damn, I'm going to get rid of them. I ain't going to be able to have no more. So I don't know. I've been thinking about getting a pop figure made, or just going another step and getting. I don't know. There's a sculptor. I think he's from New York. He makes these desk sculptures. He's got a few different ones. He got one of Sean Price.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's hard. He got, man. So I've been thinking about doing something like that, but he does his art by hand, and they're pretty expensive. They're like $250. So with that, it's more of a piece of art than it is commerce just to make a profit. And a lot of times that's what it is. It's not necessarily about making money. It's about putting something out there that's a piece of art that people can enjoy
and it lasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Paul, what was your first time in New York like?
My first time in New York was surreal. Like a lot of people, the Big Apple, the biggest city, in the world. Maybe not officially, but it is.
Yeah.
By all means, the mecca of the world. So to be there, especially for America, especially to be at the birthplace of hip hop, all of those things, like, man, there's so much respect, admiration I have for the city. So many of my favorite artists are from there, favorite athletes, just all of those things. And that's the kind of the feeling that we would get when we travel around the country. But of course, New York is definitely one of a kind city. I remember the first time we went too. It was me and Chameleon there was signed to Paid in Full Records. There was a local label out of Houston, and we had a couple deal offers. That most of them were kind of BS, but we had one from Epic and Sony, and they had flew us up there. We went to meet with them. The deal didn't work out. But I remember, just to give you the era of the time, this is right when Wankster first came out.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
So this was 50 Cent Wankster just came out on the radio in New York. This, so because I remember them playing it, and they like, brand new 50 Cent, like
crazy.
It just came out. So that was our first time in New York, and it was like, I felt like a kid going to the airport with their mama and your mama went to the bathroom, and you just standing there like waiting for your mama to come back. Like, what do I do? That's how I felt. It was like I felt lost, but I was like in amazement. I was just watching everybody, looking at everybody. I'm observant too, so I like looking at people and laughing or being curious. Whatever. Man, it was a great time though, man. I love going to New York, man. It's definitely its own vibe, man. The people in New York are one of a kind, man. Shout out to New York.
Yeah. When you think about your time with Todd Moskowitz and Joey IE, what can you say about those guys?
Man, those guys know what they're doing. They took me to oh my God, to another level. Like, the doors they opened for me, Joey IE introduced me to so many artists. Dipset, Fat Joe, Diddy, oh my God.
Khaled.
Khaled. Man, I can't even. Matter of fact, on the song with Khaled, I gave him a shout out, Joey IE.
Yeah, we love that. We love that so much.
But I think he got a little flack for that. We tried to put him in the video too. And, some people were like, wait a minute, what you doing? Why you trying to be all up in the video? Like, did you tell him to do that? But he didn't tell me to do that. I'm just trying to shout him out, show him love. That's still my boy to this day. I don't talk to him.
Paul, straight up, like, when we were new to the business back in, like, 2007, 2008, we went to SOBs here in New York, right? And Joey walked up to us, and we only knew who he was from that Holla at Me video.
That's dope.
It was so crazy. Dope. It was so awesome.
Todd as well, man. Todd is both of them, they have different personalities, so I would be with them in different, experiences. It would be different things. I remember one time we was in the studio and we were sipping syrup. We were trying to get Todd to drink some syrup. He didn't want to. He was like, nah, I don't want to. But he was curious about it too. Like, damn, y'all are really just sitting there drinking cough medicine. What are y'all doing? We try, hey, come on, drink something. He's like, nah, I'm good.
Can you talk about a person who means so much to you and so much to us in our career and everything? The legend Bun B.
Oh man, Bun B for sure. He's he was like most of the artists of our era, like in Houston, or just not even Houston, Texas, but for sure Houston. And he was the big bro to everybody. I mean, he kind of was the big bro to everybody in the South. A mentor to everybody. Man, really, that's really how it is. He was a mentor to everybody in the South that came out in a certain era. He was the go-to person that you get him on a verse and he'd kill it.
Yeah.
You'd always hear him. That's one thing that always stood out to me too, is that Bun B, his features, if it's a feature in Bun B, he was gonna kill it.
Yeah.
And that to me was something that, it motivated me. Like, man, that's how I want to be perceived. When they say feature in Power, oh, you gonna click? Hey, we see what he talking about. I know he gonna kill it, and then kill it.
And you know what? On like when Bun and Static got together and they did Trill Static maybe like 6 months ago, 7-8 months ago, something like that, and then they put out the deluxe version, and you showed up on that song, Jon Snow. You fucking destroyed that.
Man, thank you, man. Yes, sir. Shit, I gotta give that credit to Static though, cause boy, Static will bring it out here, man. Boy, them beats he got, God.
Yeah, man.
That aura he got, boy, he gonna bring it out here, man. But
absolutely,
Bun B, man. That boy Bun B, man. Shout out to Bun B, man. That's big homie.
Yo, what can you tell us about? Obviously, we saw that you put out that new single, "So Trill," with Lil Keke and Slim Thug, and shout out to Slim Thug, by the way, another guy that we know him for a long time. Who glad that he's doing better through all of this. But we know this is off that album Slab Talk coming out that you and Keke got. Tell us about that.
Well, Kiki's somebody, he's my favorite rapper. Always has been since I first heard rap. To me, growing up in Houston, he was my Big Daddy Kane or Rakim. This is how we were introduced to hip hop, was through the Screw Tape and through Lil Keke. So he always has been, the leader of the culture, and my personal favorite. So to work with him like I have in the past, it mean a lot, but especially on this, because it's a full-length album. This is our first time doing an album together, so it's something we had the idea several years ago, and we just wait till the time was right, and we started working on it seriously, like around 2018, and in 2019 we started really going in. And when we got to the end, we like, okay, let's put a plan together. How can we? Because today's day and age with music, there's not a lot of marketing, long-term pre-marketing. It's all post. You throw it up and then you market it after you put it out. But we said, with this one, let's build up a little hype with this one. Let's kind of take it back to the older model of doing things, where you put it, months out and you promote it for months. Because at the same time, we had other projects we were releasing in the meantime. So it was like, I released my project, he released his project, and we just start promoting our group project. And then as time go on, we start getting a little more and more serious with it. But it comes out June 6th. It's called Slab Talk. And we don't really have any features on there other than Slim Thug and Big Pokey. Those are basically the only ones. We really just wanted to keep it me and Keke on this one. So
yeah, man. Well, listen, like Break 'Em Off still gets spin up here. Like for us in this house, we play that all the time, man.
Yes, sir.
Hard.
Yes, sir.
Listen, Paul, we love you. Take care of yourself, you and yours down there. Congratulations on everything. When this is all over, I hope we can sit with you down for like a full hour-and-a-half episode. We know you got all the stories down there and all the personality. We appreciate you. Thanks for everything you've done, and be well.
Yes, sir. Likewise. Thank you for having me, man. God bless y'all, man. See y'all soon.
And now, Jeff, let's call over to Brooklyn and finally get on the phone with our friend, Ben Detrick.
Yo.
Ben!
What up?
What's going on, guys?
What's happening? How are you?
I'm pretty good. I mean, I feel like there are a lot of people who are dealing with very tough times and in perilous situations. So if being bored and sick of hanging out indoors is the worst that we have to put up with, like I'm willing to say everything is all good.
Absolutely, and totally agreed. So we will see you at the protest march tomorrow, right?
We're going to the State House.
Yes, let's go. Bring your pitchfork, Ben.
You've worked in rap, you've worked in sports, you've worked in New York nightlife, and I think that your chronicles of New York at night have been like some of my favorite pieces to read. I was wondering what you think about New York being shut down now. I mean, obviously not good, but for New York City, is there anything good that can possibly come out of this?
Yeah, it's so hard to say, because the cynical side is that this is an accelerant for everything bad. you know, that's just like my natural cynicism. But there's this little kernel of optimist that says maybe this changes New York and makes it better. Maybe we can be a cooler, more humane place. Okay, open up the streets to pedestrians and sidewalk al fresco dining. Let's have open container rules taken away. Let's legalize marijuana. All those offices that were in Manhattan that no one wants anymore, maybe those can become, interesting places. They could become a nightclub, but I'm speaking about this in terms of like coronavirus is curtailed.
Of course.
Now.
Yeah.
And I do have that idea. Like, what if we could say, get rid of Amazon? What if we can get rid of Seamless? This like utopian idea of like New York is the new Berlin. But the reality is probably like people, stuff will get, the little guys will go to business, stuff will get bought,
right?
More condos will get built.
Yeah.
But specifically in terms of nightlife, I do think we had reached a really dead period prior to this, where Manhattan was too expensive. People are too spread out throughout Brooklyn to like easily get into sort of downtown New York on a regular basis. Like back in the day, everyone hung out like beneath 14th Street, and you'd go party to party to party.
Yeah.
And now it's like kind of the LAification, where there might be something in Gowanus, there might be something in Greenpoint, there might be something in Bushwick, there might be something in Ridgewood, there might be something in Tribeca, and it's really hard to kind of have a circuit when it's like that. So
yeah,
I would like to see Manhattan come back, and maybe if now the culture is shifting towards working from home, and we've seen that commercial rents are not necessarily feasible for some companies, maybe we'll start having opportunities for venues, for music, for nightlife, for parties in Manhattan again.
Well, so we're on the Upper West Side, as you know. You're down in Brooklyn. Everything is localized at this point, and no one's taking the trains. No one's really veering outside too much. When you do make it out in Brooklyn, is there a sense that, and I know that Brooklyn is, gentrified and that's well known.
Yeah, Ben was the gentrifier.
But do you find that any local businesses are making the effort to stay open, and people are making the effort to go into those places to keep this type of Brooklyn still alive?
I've seen, and this is in like the North Brooklyn area, I've seen, some like slice spots stay open, which I'm like, that's great. Like that is a little bit of normalcy that is highly appreciated. The ability to walk over and grab a slice in a square and walk home. You're like, almost normal on a nice day.
Yeah.
And I've noticed some bars at least are doing, kind of curbside, where you walk up to a window, they'll pour you a beer or make a cocktail, and you can like walk around with it. And I think the nice little pleasures that not only you can see a place that's trying to stay alive and not just full completely, but also make this a less sort of stressful and hostile time.
Yeah.
But, I really do have a lot of concern that maybe I didn't initially about the survival rates of places that we really like. When we thought this would be a month, I was like, I think we can handle that. A month makes sense, but you're hearing about more and more places, whether it's Lucky Strike or some places around me in Brooklyn or places in Manhattan, that owners are really second guessing whether it's worth the trouble of trying to reopen again, whether it's worth re-upping leases, et cetera. So I think the prognosis is kind of grim, to be honest.
Yeah. Everybody saw the pictures of the West Village that came out this weekend and how packed those parks were. I was wondering what it's like in Williamsburg. Like, what is the energy like over there? Are there people out? Like, what does it look like?
I definitely going through like Greenpoint and Williamsburg and other parts of Brooklyn, South Side. On nice days, you certainly see people out, and I know that you get that telephoto lens, you get your scolding shame photo up on Twitter. You get a lot of interaction off of like, oh my God, there are so many people in the park. I think 99% of people are doing a good job. There are certainly some individuals who are maybe not social distancing like they should be, and they could do better. But overall, I think people are doing a good job. It is weird though, because the only time you really see people is like jogging around, and then on those nice moments where the sun is out and people like go to find a small patch of sod to sit on. Like and I've heard about parties that are still going on. That's not something I'm into right now. Like I know it's still happening. People are throwing house parties and stuff like that. But I think it's a very, very small sliver of the population. I just want to defend New York overall, and I think it's unfair that a photo of like a group of people in a park becomes like emblematic of like New Yorkers ignoring the coronavirus. The streets are empty all the time, man.
Considering every Sunday night that we all watch, and by we all I mean the entire world, watches the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, do you feel, especially in this weekend's episodes, that maybe in retrospect, Patrick Ewing has gotten a bad rep?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's the same way that if you look at the way Michael Jordan has been interpreted by younger generations as a guy who sold sneakers, a guy who was the face of a crying Jordan meme. Ewing is kind of now viewed as a loser. And I do feel as if the boomer narratives that have changed the way that people think about Patrick Ewing and Charles Barkley, guys who did not win a championship, has kind of poisoned the greatness of some of these guys. You know, looking back at how Ewing performed in that series, I had to refresh it myself. In my mind, I'm like, I'm sure Patrick Ewing shat the bed. No, he balled out. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
No one else on the Knicks did jack shit. It was like Ewing was great. Averaged like 25 and 11, 2 blocks, 2 steals, 53% from the floor. Like, come on, give this workhorse some respect. The Knicks had a fantastic defense, which he anchored, and he was their only scoring option. That guy, like, carried the Knicks. Like, give him his props.
Absolutely. So, considering that, if we put you aside as a Patrick Ewing defender, and we put, like, Jeff Van Gundy aside, because you know he's always going to ride for Pat, I would expect that someone like Charles Oakley would sort of, like, run to his defense. But meanwhile, Charles is out here and
in the documentary.
No, well, not, Charles for like the last year has sort of had some like issues with Patrick Ewing, and it's been playing out in the media. I would think that like Oak would be there, but apparently not so much.
Well, Oak is Michael Jordan's best friend.
Yeah.
You know, so his loyalties here. Once Dolan stopped letting him come to the Garden, like, all right, who's buttering his bread? All right, it's MJ. You know, like Oak, you know, an excellent player, Knick for life, all those things that go along with being a member of the '90s Knicks. Yeah, I would say he's Team Jordan at this point. He's not really Team Hubert Davis, I guess.
One thing that a lot of people have not been talking about that we've lost, you know, given this pop culture and sports and entertainment pause, has been March Madness. And you, as a upstate New York guy, as a Syracuse Orange and Orangemen fan, how do you feel about people's college careers ending without a real March Madness? How do you feel about, like, you know?
Well, what does it mean for the draft? I mean, like, everything moving forward.
Well, as someone who is a Syracuse fan and grew up loving the Orange back when they were, you know, the since canceled Orangemen.
Yes.
You know, I do have a soft spot for like the old school Big East, but a lot of that has eroded due to my distrust of the NCAA.
Sure.
So anything that hurts them at this point is kind of okay by me. Like, ooh, no tournament. That's arduous to feast your eyes upon. So, like, I think the NBA is definitely snaking them a bit here by saying, oh, by the way, we'll pay guys like $500,000 to play in the G League.
Yeah.
And the NCAA is like, I thought we had a deal. But, you know, like, if we're putting this in different terms, the NBA ran off on the plug.
Well, is there any part of you that bought into the Big Three?
Not really, but as long as it keeps those guys playing basketball and not announcing, I'm with it.
Well, who then would be your worst case scenario announcer for a player that had like just retired and was sort of like dabbling with the idea of getting on television?
Marv Albert.
Well, for me, I think the announcers that parrot previous generations are the most grating, because, you know, you see someone like Kendrick Perkins, he's like an entertaining guy, but he's almost like boomer cosplaying.
Right.
You know, he just left the NBA and he's there like, Draymond, for disrespect Charles Barkley again. I'm like, no, defend your own generation. There's enough guys from the 90s who are, you know, gung-ho about defending their own era. Like, Kendrick, tell people that Draymond is better than Charles. So, like, my nightmare are all these guys getting sort of pigeonholed as old school tough guys. I want someone who comes in and is like a J.R. Smith, who's like, nah, the young guys shooting threes, showmanship, sprint floor, just appreciate the modern game for being exciting, or at least offer a counterpoint to the idea that the 90s were like the end all be all of basketball.
Well, so I think about like guys who may be sort of on the younger end. Like let's take out like the Reggie Millers and let's take out the Chris Webbers. When you think of someone who was like on the younger end and joined media, and not necessarily like his own actions, but sort of his own actions, is Jason Williams, right? So he's carved out he's carved out that lane where he's a younger guy who sort of understands the younger generation. What do you think of Jason Williams as opposed to guys like Chris Webber and Reggie Miller? And did you have any feeling when you saw the other Jason Williams, Jayson, in last night's episode of The Last Dance?
Right. I was trying to get to which of the three Jason Williams are we discussing? Well, right. So the one who was originally drafted by Duke who was drafted by the Bulls after playing at Duke and is now an announcer. I think he tends to veer sort of retrograde as well. I can't say I'm totally familiar with the nuances of his opinions, but I've seen enough kind of float around Twitter where I think he also is a guy who's a little boomer poisoned. Mm-hmm. And I feel bad for guys like Chuck because, Chuck has to sit there and argue with Draymond where Draymond's talking about rings and Chuck almost seems to have internalized that. Mm-hmm. He was an incredible player, so great, and he doesn't really seem to put himself in the same category as guys who won championships. He's like humbled himself because he didn't get a ring. I'm like, Barkley, you were a beast.
Yeah.
Just like Ewing was.
But isn't that sort of the same argument that goes into music as well, where it's like first week numbers have become the more interesting argument for a lot of people, whereas it really should be more about how long lasting stuff is?
Yeah, I mean,
or is that a bad analogy? I don't even know.
Well, I think we're looking for metrics, right, that are just not complicated.
Yeah,
we don't want to look at real like metrics and get in the mud with like I don't know, whatever you do is like BPM or
right.
or PER, we're just trying to find something that's like, hey, 6 rings. Here are the SoundScan numbers. Here's how many YouTube plays it had. We're just clutching at something so that we can make an argument that like 5 is more than 2 or something.
Ben, you are the first person who really put French Montana on my radar, which was like very early on, and I'm so appreciative of that because I became French's biggest fan. I wondered what your perspective was in all of this French versus Kendrick Lamar sort of back and forth that was happening the past month.
I mean, look, Kendrick is obviously a gifted rapper. He approaches music with a craft that is foreign to what French does. But are we really saying that he's got more hits than French?
No.
See, this is exactly. By the way, this is sort of the same argument we were just talking about.
I know, yeah.
I fuck with it.
For me, he also has these like little cheat codes where was Work his song? No, but he's on the remix. And there's a bunch of those records, like with Bobby Shmurda, not his record, on the remix. If we're doing the beat battle style, he's got a strong like hit after hit after hit, put Chop It Down up there.
Yeah.
I'll take that against like 90% of Kendrick's catalog, and that's a song that probably a lot of people don't even know.
Well, I mean, it's just songs that I would rather listen to like 100% of the time. But Ben, we first met you when you were really working with Double XL, when you were like traveling around the country. You were going to like Rick Ross's house. I wonder if you have a particularly good rap journalism story.
Well, one that was kind of interesting, I remember interviewing T.I., and we were in Atlanta, and it was late at night in his studio. I want to say it was like somewhere in like an industrial Bankhead area. And he was so polished and smart and charming that I was just getting nothing. He was so great. And like I had to accuse him of snitching. Not because I necessarily was like, you're a snitch. I'm like, I just have to get under his skin a bit. So I was like, I said it in like as respectful a way as I could. And he went on a rant, and he stood up, and he was like marching around like, foghorn leghorn. And he gave me all my good quotes like the next minute and a half. So like, it was like, I think that was a good one where you're like, sometimes you just kind of have to like be antagonistic to get the good material, because these guys are really excellent interviews. They're smart. They can outthink you if you play by the rules. Sometimes you have to get in the mud a little bit.
Well, from getting into the mud to mud slinging, would you be down for a 50 Cent Ja Rule versus?
I don't know. Is there still beef with like Murder Inc. henchmen?
Yeah.
People who, from alleged reports, tried to murder 50 Cent.
Yeah.
If it's all like music, then hell yeah. I don't really know how Ja wins against 50 Cent.
I think
today.
that Ja would win just by it happening. Like, I think that's like, that would be his win, like just to even be like on the same level, because 50 as a cultural icon is so much bigger that it's almost just like, why is he even bothering with Ja Rule, who is such a footnote in everything, other than like Firefest? Like, that was his only thing, like, and that was like 2 years ago,
Do you guys think 50 is a bit underappreciated right now? This talk of Patrick Ewing is making me think of 50 in that way. Like, not that he's viewed as like a choker or anything. Like, he's viewed as a winner.
But yeah, absolutely. Even if we're just talking about music.
Oh, I think he's underrated, but I also think he's done so many things that he's like self-inflicted upon his legacy that it's in the same way that like Eminem, like Eminem was so big and so great for a moment, but because of all the stuff that's come afterwards, it's like, well, yeah, but like if he had stopped, 15 years ago, then it would have been like amazing.
Yeah, and someone like Ice Cube too. Part of it's just generational. The when you're elevated to superstardom and then that group ages out, then how does the next generation know you?
Yeah, I mean, like even with Jay-Z has like up and down periods too, right? Like everybody hated him during the period where Magna Carta Holy Grail went to your Samsung phone, and then like the next album it's like, oh well, we love Jay and we've never not liked Jay. You know, like I think that everybody has sort of like periods. It's just like people get used to Ice Cube, people get used to 50, and they sort of need to switch things up to win people back again, or to remind, like you sort of need a documentary in the same way that like Jordan needed this documentary to become
more than the crying meme face.
Yeah,
I mean, Cube was like the baddest man on the planet. He was controversial. He was scary. From a rap perspective, he was great. He was arguably the best rapper out, making the best albums and scaring mainstream society the most.
Yeah, but now are we there yet?
Now he's the big three.
Yeah, exactly right. Ben, listen, take care of yourself over there. Take care of your surroundings, you and yours. We love you. Stay creative, stay engaged, and we'll be checking in on you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you guys giving me a buzz. And, look, we're all in this together. Whatever the various experts say, all we can do is just, wait inside until the Playboi Carti album drops.
Shout out to Ben Detrick, shout out to Paul Wall, and shout out to Fadia Kader. Jeff, are we back tomorrow?
We are back every day forever.
As always, guys, now for real.
Sure.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.